Jamie had built her life around one principle. Love was inefficient. It distracted, it destabilized, and she didn't have time for it. Then Becca walked into her office, a young woman fighting to keep her late father's house from uncles who believed blood trumped partnership. The case led Jamie to Mirable, Becca's mother, 39, composed, steady, beautiful. Jamie told herself it was just a case, late nights, reviewing documents, quiet conversations at the dining table, professional distance. But the distance kept shrinking. Mirable spoke about her late husband with respect, not longing. She laughed in candlelight when the power flickered. She looked at Jamie like she actually saw her. And somewhere along the way, Jamie stopped feeling like the one holding everything together. She felt seen. The night before a critical hearing, Mirable said something Jamie couldn't unhear. "You don't have to carry all of this alone. I meant life." And this time, Jamie didn't retreat. She wasn't sure who leaned in first. Maybe it was her. Maybe it was Mirable. Maybe it was both of them, finally surrendering to a gravity that had been building for weeks. Their lips met, soft, tentative, like a question neither had dared to ask out loud. Jamie's mind flashed with warnings. "She's your client's mother. This is unprofessional. You could lose everything you've built." She pulled back slightly. "I should go," she whispered. But Mirable's hand found her. Thumb. Grounding. Stay. One word. And Jamie felt the last of her resistance dissolve. Mirable didn't rush. She moved like someone who understood that moments like this were rare, precious, not to be hurried through. Jamie followed her toward the stairs. Each step felt like a choice, a conscious decision to stop running from what she wanted. Halfway up, Jamie paused. Her hand rested on the railing, her breath uneven. Mirable turned back. "We don't have to," she said gently, "if you're not sure." Jamie looked at her, at the soft light catching the edges of her face, at the patience in her eyes, at the way she held space without demanding anything. And Jamie realized something. In every relationship before this, she had been the older soul. The one who gave, the one who taught, the one who held things together while someone else fell apart. But here? Mirable wasn't asking her to be strong. She was asking her to be present. "I'm sure," Jamie said quietly. They reached the top of the stairs. Mirable's room was simple. Clean lines, soft colors, a window overlooking the backyard where moonlight spilled through sheer curtains. Jamie stood in the doorway for a moment, taking it in. This was the room of a woman who had built a life, raised a daughter, buried a husband, and still found the courage to open a door she had closed decades ago. Mirable sat on the edge of the bed. She didn't perform. She didn't seduce. She simply looked at Jamie with an openness that was almost unbearable. "I haven't done this in a long time," Mirable admitted. "Done what?" "Let someone see me." Jamie crossed the room slowly. She knelt in front of Mirable, took both her hands. "Then we go slow." What followed wasn't rushed. It was two women unlearning years of hiding. Every touch was intentional. Every pause was permission. Every breath was a conversation without words. For Jamie, it was surrender. She had spent years building walls, convincing herself that control was safety, that distance was protection. But here in this room, she let herself be held, and it didn't feel like weakness. It felt like coming home. For Mirable, it was remembrance. 20 years ago, in a small town where whispers could ruin you, she had loved a girl. Her family found out. The ultimatum was clear. Marry. Be normal, or be cut off. So she married, and she did love her husband. Genuinely. Deeply, but differently. She had buried that other version of herself so completely that she sometimes forgot it existed. Until Jamie walked into her house, with her sharp mind and guarded eyes, and something Mirable hadn't felt in decades stirred back to life. Tonight wasn't about replacing what she'd lost. It was about remembering who she had always been. And as they lay together in the quiet aftermath, Mirable felt something shift. Not just attraction, recognition. They fell asleep without planning to. Bodies close, breathing synchronized, the weight of the world, for a few hours, forgotten. Jamie's eyes opened at 4:03 a.m. She didn't need an alarm. Her body always knew when something needed fixing. For a long moment, she didn't move. She stared at the ceiling, replaying the night, feeling the warmth of Mirable beside her. Then the clarity came. Cold, familiar, unforgiving. What have you done? She slipped out of bed carefully, found her clothes folded on the chair where she had left them, dressed in silence. In the bathroom, she splashed water on her face, looked at herself in the mirror. Same features, same composure. But something behind her eyes had shifted. She wasn't the same person who had walked into this house last night, and that terrified her. She returned to the bedroom. Mirable was still asleep, her face soft, unguarded, peaceful in a way Jamie had never seen during their waking hours. Jamie sat in the armchair by the window and waited. She watched the sky slowly lighten, gray, then pink, then pale gold. She watched Mirable's breathing, the gentle rise and fall, the occasional shift. And she rehearsed what she would say. A dozen versions, each one clinical, each one professional, each one designed to rebuild the walls she had let crumble. At 6:17, Mirable stirred, her eyes opened slowly. She turned toward the empty space beside her, then toward the window, and found Jamie watching her. "Hey," Mirable said softly as she walked towards her. "Hey." She studied Jamie's posture, the pressed clothes, the composed expression, the careful distance. "You're doing that thing," Mirable said. "A thing where you retreat before anyone can ask you to stay." Jamie stood, crossed to the bed, but didn't sit. "Last night was," she began. "Don't." Jamie stopped. "Don't reduce it to a mistake before you've even processed it." Jamie exhaled. "Mirable, you're my client's mother. I have a professional obligation, an ethical code. I know. What we did was honest." Jamie shook her head. "It was a boundary I shouldn't have crossed." Mirable was quiet for a moment. She walked to where Jamie stood, close but not touching. "Do you regret it?" Jamie wanted to say yes. It would have been easier, cleaner, a straight line back to safety. But she couldn't lie. "No," she admitted, "and that's the problem." Mirable nodded slowly. "So what do you want to do?" Jamie steadied herself. "I want us to focus on the case. Until it's resolved, we need to maintain professional distance. No more evenings that blur the line, no more moments like last night." "And after the case?" Jamie hesitated. "I don't know." Mirable studied her face, looking for cracks, for openings, for any sign that Jamie's walls weren't as solid as she pretended. "Okay," Mirable said finally. "Okay? If space is what you need to feel like yourself, then I'll give you space." She stepped closer. "But Jamie?" Their eyes met. "Don't mistake fear for ethics. They're not the same thing." The weeks that followed were surgical. Jamie communicated through email, kept calls brief, met at the office instead of Mirable's home. When they did see each other, she was polite, professional, unreachable, and Mirable respected it, even when it hurt. Becca noticed the shift. "Did something happen between you two?" she asked Jamie one afternoon at the office. Jamie didn't look up from her files. "We're just focused on the case." Becca wasn't convinced, but she didn't push. One night, alone in her apartment, Jamie sat with a glass of wine she didn't drink. She scrolled through old texts from Mirable. Nothing inappropriate, just warmth, curiosity, connection. She thought about what Mirable had said. Don't mistake fear for ethics. Was that what she was doing? Hiding behind professionalism because the alternative was too vulnerable? She set the phone down, didn't answer her own question. The final hearing date approached. Jamie prepared obsessively. Depositions, evidence binders, legal precedents. She met with Mirable once more to review final documents. At the office, door open, Becca present, everything proper. But when Mirable signed the last form, their fingers brushed, just for a second, and Jamie felt the entire month of distance collapse. She pulled her hand back. "We'll be ready," she said. Mirable nodded. "I know." The night before the hearing, Jamie couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, running through arguments, anticipating objections, preparing for every possible outcome. But beneath all of it was one thought she couldn't silence. What happens after? The courtroom was cold, fluorescent lights, worn wooden benches, the smell of old paper and anxiety. Jamie sat beside Mirable at the plaintiff's table, close enough to feel her presence, far enough to maintain composure. The brothers sat across the aisle. Their attorney shuffled papers with practiced confidence. But Jamie had seen his briefs. His arguments were emotional, not evidentiary. She wasn't worried about losing. She was worried about what winning would mean. The judge entered. Everyone rose, and the final hearing began. The brothers' attorney spoke first. He painted Mirable as an outsider, someone who had married into the family but never truly belonged, who had no moral claim to property that should stay with blood relatives. Jamie listened without reacting. She had heard these arguments before, from the brothers themselves, from their letters, from every assumption they made about who deserved what. When it was her turn, she stood slowly. "Your Honor, this case isn't about sentiment, it's about law." She walked through the evidence, the original deed, the marriage certificate, the joint account statements showing mortgage payments from shared funds, the renovation invoices signed by both spouses, the tax returns listing the property as a marital residence. Massachusetts law provides spousal protections for exactly this reason, Jamie continued. To prevent surviving spouses from being displaced by relatives who believe blood supersedes partnership. She glanced at Mirable, just for a second, and saw something that looked like pride. The brothers' attorney tried to counter. He argued the contributions were minimal, that the original purchase was entirely premarital. That intent mattered more than paperwork. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Counsel, do you have documentation of that intent?" "The brothers will testify. I asked about documentation." Silence. Jamie didn't smile, but she allowed herself a slow breath. Closing arguments were brief. The brothers' attorney appealed to family legacy. Jamie appealed to the law. The judge retired to deliberate. 43 minutes later she returned. The courtroom fell silent. In the matter of estate distribution, the court finds that the surviving spouse has demonstrated sufficient marital contribution to the property in question. The petition for forced sale is denied. The property shall remain with Mrs. Mirable, with full rights of occupancy and ownership. Becca gasped. Mirable closed her eyes. Jamie exhaled. It was over. Outside the courthouse, the air felt different, lighter, cleaner, like the pressure that had been building for months had finally released. Becca hugged her mother tightly, then turned to Jamie. "Thank you for everything." Jamie nodded. "Just doing my job." Becca smiled knowingly. "Sure." She glanced between them. "I'm going to get the car," and left them alone. Jamie and Mirable stood facing each other. The courthouse steps behind them, the afternoon sun casting long shadows. "You won," Mirable said. "We won." "No," Mirable shook her head. "You won. I just tried not to fall apart." Jamie almost smiled. "You held together better than most. I had good counsel." Silence stretched between them. Not uncomfortable, but heavy, full of everything that hadn't been said. "So," Mirable said finally, "the case is over." "It is. Professional distance is no longer required." Jamie's chest tightened. "Mirable, I'm not asking for anything," Mirable said gently. "I just want to know where you are, what's real." Jamie looked down, then back up. "That night," she began slowly, "I told myself it was a mistake, that I crossed a line I shouldn't have. And now," Jamie exhaled, "now I think I was scared. Not of the ethics, not of the case, but of how real it felt." Mirable stepped closer. "What specifically scared you?" "That I wanted it. That for once in my life I stopped calculating and just felt." "And that's frightening?" "For me, yes." Mirable reached out, took Jamie's hand. Not possessively, just present. "I spent 20 years pretending I was someone I wasn't," Mirable said quietly. "I loved my husband, I did, but there was always a part of me that was locked away. That night with you was the first time in decades I felt whole. I'm not asking you to have it all figured out. I'm asking you to stop running." Jamie felt the words land, heavy and true. She thought about her apartment, her career, her carefully constructed life, and she thought about how empty it had felt since that night. I don't know how to do this, Jamie admitted. Neither do I. People will talk. They always do. Your daughter knows more than you think. Jamie laughed softly. Okay, she said. Mirable tilted her head. Okay, I'll stop running. A slow smile spread across Mirable's face. Not triumphant, not relieved, just warm. So what now? Mirable asked. Jamie thought for a moment. Now I take you to dinner somewhere nice, without case files on the table. That sounds dangerously close to a date. That's because it is. Mirable squeezed her hand. I'd like that. They walked toward the parking lot, side by side, no rush. Becca pulled up in the car, rolled down the window. It looked at their joined hands. Finally, she muttered. Mirable laughed. Jamie shook her head, but she didn't let go. That evening, Jamie picked Mirable up at 7. She had changed 3 times before leaving her apartment, settled on something simple, a navy blouse, fitted pants. The kind of outfit that said, I'm trying, but not too hard. When Mirable opened the door, Jamie felt her chest lock. She wore a deep burgundy dress, simple cut, but the way it moved when she walked made Jamie's mouth go dry. You look, Jamie started, different without legal documents in my hands. Mirable smiled, and for a moment, neither of them moved. Dinner was at a small Italian place downtown, candlelit, quiet, the kind of restaurant where conversations could breathe. They talked about everything except the case, childhood memories, favorite books, the small, ordinary details that make a person real. They shared a dessert neither of them finished, not because it wasn't good, but because they kept getting lost in conversation. After dinner, Jamie drove them to a park overlooking the city. Not planned, just instinct. They sat on a bench, the skyline glittered below, the air was cool but not cold. Can I tell you something? Mirable said. Anything. I was terrified you wouldn't come back. Jamie turned to her. What do you mean? After that night, after you pulled away, I kept thinking I had ruined it, that I had pushed too hard, too fast. Jamie shook her head slowly. You didn't push. I retreated. There's a difference. Still, I spent weeks wondering if I'd imagined everything. You didn't imagine it. Mirable looked at her. Then show me. Jamie's heart stuttered. She had kissed Mirable before. In the heat of a moment she couldn't control. In darkness that felt like permission. But this was different. This was choice. This was saying, I want this, without any excuse to hide behind. She reached up, brushed a strand of hair from Mirable's face, let her fingers linger against her cheek. Mirable's eyes softened. She didn't move, didn't rush, just waited. Jamie leaned in, slowly, giving them both time to change their minds. Neither did. Their lips met, and this time there was no urgency, no desperation, no fear of what it meant. It was soft, intentional, a kiss that said, I'm choosing you. Mirable's hand found the back of Jamie's neck, gentle, grounding, holding her close without pulling. Jamie felt something unlock in her chest. A door she hadn't even known was closed. When they finally pulled apart, foreheads resting together, neither spoke. They didn't need to. The city hummed below them, cars moved like distant fireflies. Somewhere, a church bell chimed the hour. I could get used to this, Mirable whispered. Jamie smiled. That's the plan. They sat there for a long time, hands intertwined, shoulders touching, watching the city lights flicker and dance. And for the first time in her adult life, Jamie wasn't thinking about what came next. She was just present. Here. With her. Exactly where she wanted to be.